Good morning. It is Saturday, February 1st at just after 6:30 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. Scanning, by my definition, it's a made-up word. Scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. It references the idea of scanning, as in scanning the body, looking for pockets of muscular tension to be incrementally released. Squeeze your hands together and release. And this is what I call a core session as opposed to a practice session. Practice sessions will just jump in with the practice. Core sessions will discuss some of the theory and ideas behind the technique to give you a better understanding of how it works, which can be motivating in terms of understanding the purpose and the intent and the process, so that when you're practicing, you can keep that in mind, and just gives you a sense of reference. I developed this technique probably over a decade ago when I read a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment by Thaddeus Golas, G-O-L-A-S. You can still find the book on Amazon or whatever. It's a very thin volume, about 70 pages. In this book, Thaddeus Golas basically articulates the universe, describes the universe as a phenomenon based on two processes: contraction, squeeze your hands together, see what that feels like. And I always do this because when you feel something, it's different than when you cognitively recognize it. They're both valid, but they're different. And I always say when you feel something, it's a different, deeper level of understanding. So when you feel it, squeeze your hands together, you feel what contraction is, that somehow you remember it better. It stays with you. So squeeze your hands together, that's contraction. That was one of the two forces of the universe, basic fundamental building blocks of the universe. The other was the reverse, expansion, let go, 3, 2, 1, and release. So you just experienced physically the difference between contraction and expansion. Now, we all know this instinctively, intuitively, but it's just a way of articulating it for purposes of this, learning this technique. So he goes in to expound on how that applies to life and philosophy and religion and relationships and our very existence on earth. But that's the fundamental idea. So based on that, I began to look at the world through that prism. Where are things more contracted? Where are they more expanded? Well, contractions are things that are brought together and held together, such as our very being. We are a collection of cells, identity, ideas, philosophies, feelings, words, thoughts. The things we contract in the world are the buildings we build, the books we write, the music we compose. These are contractions. This takes effort and energy, not only to bring the things together, but to keep them together, because if there's one thing you can count on in the universe, it's that things will fall apart. That's the rule of entropy. So it takes work to keep things together, because things will naturally always fall apart. The universe is naturally expanding. We are always working against the natural phenomenon of expansion. Aging is an expansive process. It's the dissembling of all that was assembled. We fall apart. When we die, we turn to dust. So it takes energy to contract. That's good, that's important, that's how we get things done, that's how we build our lives, our careers, our identity. As I said, we give ourselves a name. We divide the world into sections of time so that we can coordinate with each other. All these things are contractions, and that's the stuff of life, I call it, because it's basically the world we live in, and you have to live in that world. And not only that, but you want to succeed and thrive. So you get very good at contracting. If you are an excellent speaker, you've learned how to formulate words, to bring words together and ideas. If you are an excellent musician, you've learned how to bring the coordination of hands, eyes, thoughts, feelings into a song, a symphony. If you're an architect, you learn how to bring materials to build a building. So these are how we live in our life. We make our world. We build cars. We harvest food. These are contractions. Excellent. Excellent. And if you're particularly good at contracting, you can become considered a genius or very successful in life, because no one does it better than you. That's one side of the continuum, contraction. The other side is expansion, letting go of all of that, giving it all away, going to a place of nothingness, emptiness, solitude, peace, and in a certain sense, joy at the simplicity of an expanded existence. What I discovered for myself was that when I was unhappy, typically I was overly contracted. Now I'm a relatively adept contractor. I know how to get things done, to think things, to say things, to communicate, to form things, to take on a task. But when I became obsessed with contraction, overly contracted, I found that I was unhappy. I found that I was stressed, perhaps in physical discomfort or pain, that I had limited myself with my own constraints about ideas, thoughts. I closed myself off to other possibilities. I was tense, nervous, afraid. And I discovered that if I could expand, find a way to expand, I could alleviate that discomfort, dissatisfaction, sadness, unhappiness, and go to a place of openness and joy and freedom. And I saw that basically as human beings, we need that balance. We need to be contracted, we need to be expanded equally, equal amounts. Because when we have equal amounts, what are we? We are centered. And you hear that expression a lot, centered. You found a way to reconcile those two forces in your life so that however far you go in one direction, you can bring yourself back until you have a combination of both, centered. And then you are at peace, and for me, personally, happy, joyful. Now, how do you get there? Well, there's many ways. Anything that gives you joy typically is expansive because it opens you up. You feel willing to allow what's happening to continue. You're open to it. You're not closed off. You're not guarded. You're just moving in the direction that feels good. Now, you'll just think of any number of things. Meditation, yoga, taking a walk, involving yourself in sports, sex, talking, having conversation. All of these things are expansive processes because they open you up to others. They open you up to the world. They allow you to feel free. One particular way, which I stumbled upon, which resulted in the creation of this technique, was the release of muscular tension. Now you say, oh yeah, relax. Yeah, relax. Of course, everyone knows to be relaxed is good for you. Get a massage, take a sauna, go on vacation. Relax, just relax. You'll feel better. Yes. This technique focuses on one particular avenue to relaxation, and that is the release of muscular tension. And very importantly, the incremental release of muscular tension. Because we tend to set big goals for ourselves, and when we can't reach them immediately, we tend to become frustrated and unhappy and try even harder. Whereas if you say, I want to incrementally move in this direction, in this case towards expansion, you give yourself the freedom to not criticize yourself or judge yourself, but to simply set yourself on the path. Muscular release is the perfect metaphor for the contraction-expansion continuum, because muscles can only do one of two things at any given moment. It's binary. Contract, make a fist, release, expand. So, because you can't do both at the same time, you can either do one or the other. As you begin to expand, even in the most incremental way, you begin to take yourself further along that continuum. It's a very simple way, no matter where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you feel, to find peace, to move into that expanded state by releasing muscular tension. So that's all I focus on in Sqanning, is releasing muscular tension. And you say, well, easier said than done. I can't just relax. Correct. That's why you do it incrementally. We move through the body, we scan the body, looking for where there are pockets of tension, many of which you may not even be aware of. We hold tension as a means of protecting and guarding ourselves, and you may not even be conscious of it. And as you start to scan, begin to do your own scanning sessions, you begin to discover, I know for myself, I had no idea my neck was so tense. I had no idea my chest was so tense. I had no idea my hands were so contracted. So you begin to understand and study your own state of contraction expansion, and you become a connoisseur, an expert at moving yourself on that continuum. You empower yourself to bring yourself into a more joyful, relaxed, peaceful state, an expanded state, without feeling the necessity to use external processes to achieve that, which makes you feel vulnerable and dependent. Alcohol, drugs, not putting these down, just saying these are things we use. Therapy, chiropractor, masseuse, anything you use to bring you into an expanded state, you find that you don't have to go anywhere to do it. You have that tool to do it right here. Incremental muscular release. Thereby, scanning. So, how do we practice scanning? It's almost too simple. In fact, a lot of times people tell me they're dissatisfied when I describe it to them because I say, that's just too obvious. Well, it should be. Moving yourself into an expanded state should be simple. It shouldn't be complicated. because complication is a contraction. Expansion is simplicity at its essence, nothing. It should be like nothing. So I'm going to give you a very, very abbreviated version of a scanning session because we've spent a lot of time talking about the theory, which is what a core session is. And I'm going to show you the basic technique of scanning, and you can practice as much or as little as you like, as it suits you. This may not work for you at all. You may not find this effective or interesting for that matter. I share it because I think there's some basic truths about this technique that I know apply for me, and I think, and hopefully, believe will apply for many people, so I share it. We're going to move ourselves into an expanded state. We're going to move the dial from a contracted state, feeling bad, into an expanded state, feeling better, feeling good, so that we can come to center. We're going to start with what I call the preliminary phase of scanning, which is deep breath, stillness, and silence. There's going to be a couple of ways we approach this, and that's it. You'll know the whole technique. The preliminary phase, the first half, is deep breaths, stillness, and silence. Deep breaths are as you fill your lungs, obviously expansive by nature. Also because when you're contracted, you tend to hold your breath. So we're immediately, when we start, reversing the contracted process by taking a deep breath, sitting in absolute stillness, because even as I'm talking to you in this chair, there's movement, there's motion, I'm doing. We're going to stop that. And silence, because we're going to stop using what I'm using a lot of right now, which is words and thoughts and ideas and intention. All that stops immediately when you take a deep breath and sit in stillness and silence. We're going to do it for 15 seconds to start, incrementally, and then we'll assess how we feel. Deep breath, 15 seconds, stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Here we go. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. 15 seconds. Deep breath. So you have just begun to scan. And just note for yourself how that felt. What feels different? It's very important that you become more and more aware of the distinction between the feelings that come with contraction and expansion. What feels different? What have I changed? Very subtle changes. As I say, the definition of scanning starts with the word incremental. Small amounts of change can accumulate to create big change. We're going to do this again. Deep breath. This time we're going to set for 30 seconds in absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. And experience what it is to stop the contractive process. Basically, if a car is moving this way and you want to go the other way, first it has to stop before it can go the other direction. So the preliminary phase of scanning is in effect stopping the contractive process, stopping it. Then we will move in the opposite direction, which is expansion. Deep breath, 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. 30 seconds. Deep breath. Now, if you find yourself thinking, this isn't working, this is boring, I don't understand, I want to go do something else, perfect. That is the contractive mind, that is the contractive self resisting letting go, resisting what it's most comfortable in, and that is contracting. And by that I mean thinking. So if you're interested at all in pursuing this, don't be deterred by negative thoughts, by resistance, by discomfort. This is your contractive self holding on, contracting, hanging on to that state. That's what contraction is about. Holding. Contraction wants to be contracting. That's its job. Again, very useful. If you have to perform a task or achieve something or get something done, that's a contractive state. That's a skill we all need and hopefully excel at. But if you're trying to reverse that process, you're asking the contractive self to stop contracting, and it will resist because its job is to resist, to hold, to hang on. So I'm just saying, don't be deterred by those feelings or thoughts. The reason we incrementally approach this is because it takes time to gradually reverse that process. But take the resistance as an excellent sign that you are up against your contractive self. And that basically is the process of scanning. It's a sort of struggle with yourself to leave old habits behind and create new habits. It's difficult to change. Final step in the preliminary process of scanning is deep breath, 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. We are continuing to expand and move on the spectrum towards an expanded state. Deep breath, 60 seconds. Here we go. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And again, note what that was like for you. We forget the power of stillness. Stillness is a very important component to this process because when you are still, you're basically commanding your body to stop doing. And it's surprising how many emotions that brings up. We can feel vulnerable when we're still. We can feel restricted, constrained. We can feel bored. We can feel impatient. We can feel all sorts of responses to the simple act of stillness. Again, what you're revealing, what you've pulled back the veil on, is your contractive self. By becoming still and silent, you've actually exposed your contractive self. You can hear it. You can feel it. And you can study it. And you become conscious of aspects of yourself you may not have been aware of or wanted to be aware of. So these voices come up, these feelings come up. So the very act of stillness and silence can be very informative, can teach you a lot about yourself. So I always say in these sessions, if you take nothing else from these sessions, but the practice of deep breaths, stillness, and silence, you will have achieved quite a bit in terms of coming to an understanding of this perception of yourself and where you are on the contraction expansion continuum. And you will begin to understand quite a bit about yourself through the simple act of deep breaths, stillness, and silence. And I say absolute stillness because it's something we rarely do. You'd be amazed what powerful feelings it evokes, because it is quite challenging to do nothing. So that's the preliminary phase. Again, we're going to move very quickly now because I like to keep these sessions to a half an hour through what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, which is the incremental release of muscular tension, because this is a core session where we go deeper into the theories behind it. But I will explain it in brief. The incremental release of muscular tension. We're going to scan our body for pockets of muscular tension and release that tension incrementally. Squeeze your hands, 3, 2, 1, release. We're going to move through what I call the muscular zones. You can divide your body however you like. I have divided my body into 8 basic zones. Doesn't really matter. You can spend all your time on one zone, 3 zones, 8 of them, all of them, doesn't matter. As long as you're releasing muscular tension, you are expanding. But I want to describe the 8 zones that I use, and you can use them or use your own. This technique is highly customizable. Your body will experience things completely differently or uniquely than me, but there's some basic fundamental truths which I think apply to all of us. Start with zone 1, the face. On my count, release all the muscular tension you can in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now you felt that. If you look in the mirror, you can see it. That's the core of scanning. Feeling and experience muscular release. This muscular release is cumulative. As you move through your body, it will become more and more expanded. Your mind, like a muscle, which has been holding onto thoughts and ideas and worries and concerns, will also release, allowing those thoughts to float away. You will come to a place of calmness, stillness, and peace. It can take 10 minutes, it can take a half an hour, it can take an hour. When I am particularly contracted, worried, thinking, agitated, sometimes it takes a full hour of scanning to completely let go. But when I do, there's nothing else like it. All the physical tension drops away from you, all your mental worries float away and clear, and you're in this place of absolute clarity, peace, and calm. And it's a place you're going to want to return to whenever you can. It's not easy to get there, but you can. It's why I scan every day. It's why I've been scanning for over 10 years, because I've recognized and experienced the benefit of bringing myself into that kind of balance. So how far you get with this process is up to you. How much time you put in it will determine how much results you get. Very quickly now, the face, 3, 2, 1, and release. That sensation is scanning. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 3 is the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 4 is the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 5 is the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and let them drop, release. Now, if you say, this is too fast, yes, I'm going way too fast. Typical sessions would go much more slowly. But as I said, within the restraints of a half an hour, just try to cover the bases. If you say, I'm not feeling anything, I'm not feeling any changes, squeeze your hands together, 3, 2, 1, release. Did you feel that? What happened when you did that? I immediately felt like taking a breath, because the body is typically depleted of oxygen. We typically hold our breath when we're contracted, so we're not getting enough oxygen. So the minute you begin to expand, your body feels that it has permission to breathe, and you begin to replenish yourself. So look for the changes. If you felt any change at all, you expanded. The shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 6 is the torso, the chest, the stomach, the back, down to the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 7, the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And finally, zone 8, down the legs across the knees and into the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. I very quickly skimmed over these. But what you're looking to do is on the count, 3, 2, 1, focus your energy on that area. Experience whatever feelings you have, however much tension you have in that area. And on the snap, turn off the power to those muscles and let them just go limp. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. It's a slouching, slumping feeling. It's a small feeling. It's an incremental feeling. But as I said, it's cumulative. You can't contract and expand at the same time. Every time you expand, you're moving that much further along the dial, moving that much further away from a contracted state. I would say that if there's anything I recommend in particular with this practice, it's to be patient and persistent. The more frustrated you feel, the more impatient you feel, the more you've struck gold, because impatience, frustration are contractive states. That's the part of you saying, I need to see results. I need to do something. I can't just sit here and let go. I will, in effect, perish. So, one moment, I'll get a drink of water here. In effect, take those feelings of frustration as a sign that you are on the right path and continue and persist. You may, as I do frequently, feel every atom in your body resisting, wanting to go back to your phone, the internet, television, eating, whatever is your typical contractive activity, because contraction can be very reassuring. Trust me when I say that the reverse process can be just as rewarding if you give it a chance and you persist. When you come to a place of expansion, you don't need the phone. You don't need the television. You don't need food. You don't need to think anything or do anything, because you've come to a place of being. And in that state, you sense an incredible fulfillment, because you realize that doing nothing, just being, is not only enough, but highly rewarding. To feel yourself at your most basic as a human being, breathing, experiencing the air on your skin, hearing the sounds in the room, is a very rich experience, very satisfying experience, because you're literally experiencing what it is to be alive. I'm alive. I'm a human being. It can be overwhelming, it can be frightening, it could be thrilling, but at its most basic, to be alive, to be a human being, is like nothing you'll ever experience in life. And it only happens once. You only get one life. So you want to try to get to that place. To feel the gratitude that comes with being alive. The miracle of being alive, of being in a state of simplicity. Because in that nothingness lies everything. So, again, my apologies for moving so quickly through the muscular zones. There will be sessions where we spend more time on that. I recommend you try this for 5 minutes, then maybe 10, then 15. Work your way up. Practice as much as you need to get the results you want. As I've said, there will come a time where you will move into what I completely expanded space. Not completely would be to perish, but a highly expanded state. And when you feel that, when you experience that, which is, I think, something we all try to achieve through various means, you'll want to keep practicing this technique, because you'll feel the benefits, not just in the expanded state, but what it brings to you in your contracted life. There's a calm, there's a peace, there's an understanding of your purpose and who you are that will bring a sort of effectiveness to everything you do. You won't be running from yourself, you will be living within your own skin. And so give it a shot and practice as much as you can. Keep a journal if it helps motivate you. I try to do an hour or 2 a day. Make it a part of your life, because it's a new habit that will bring your life into balance. We have plenty of this contraction. Start to bring some of this expansion into your life. The more you bring in, the more centered, more fulfilled you will be. So that's it. Thanks for visiting. We'll see you next time. It's Sqanning, Sqanning. It is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Have a good day. Bye.